Imagine a news item so far outside the usual bandwidth of public discourse that it forces an immediate global pause. A credible, mainstream prediction is now circulating that non-human intelligences are weeks away from openly confirming their existence to Earth. This rumor lands in a culture all of craft that defy conventional physics. But if we strip away the sensationalism and the science fiction tropes, we are left with a massive systemic question. Using the tools of geopolitics, economics, and psychology, we need to examine what actually happens when the premise of human isolation collapses. Modern society is structured around a single, unexamined assumption that human beings are the only intelligent agents shaping events on this planet. Every political system, market, and social order we've built rests on this foundation of human centrality. This animation represents our interconnected social and cognitive structures. The arrival of a second intelligence is a boundary event. As this foreign variable descends into the center, the existing scaffolding of everyday life is forced to shift or collapse entirely. The confirmation of non-human life functions as an epistemic shockwave. Before governments can formulate policy or markets can reprice risk, humanity will first have to absorb the fact that it is no longer the sole intelligent actor in its own story. The first 24 hours will be defined by a level of psychological disequilibrium with modern precedent. As ordinary comprehension reaches its limit, social media will amplify a chaotic mixture of genuine data and panicked speculation, leading to erratic personal behavior and a surge in emergency calls. Religious and ideological frameworks will face a sudden, violent reckoning. Some traditions will move to incorporate the visitors into their narratives, while others will fracture, unable to reconcile their doctrinal certainties with the presence of a technologically superior species. Education systems and cultural narratives, built on human-centered histories, will face instant obsolescence. Students will demand explanations that teachers cannot provide, leaving universities and institutions to struggle with the erosion of their foundational assumptions. Beneath the immediate turbulence, a deeper shift will occur. Before any policy or market can adapt, the world enters a state of profound cognitive flux, rooted in the realization that we are no longer the apex actors on our own planet. Within the first week, world leaders will scramble to reestablish a sense of control. They will convene through the UN Security Council and regional alliances, but these meetings will be less about policy and more about preventing unilateral actions that could be misinterpreted by the visitors. Intelligence agencies will find themselves in a total informational vacuum. Traditional methods, signals interception, satellite surveillance, and military reconnaissance, are designed for human adversaries and may be entirely ineffective against interstellar capabilities. A diplomatic crisis will emerge over the question of who speaks for humanity. No single state possesses a mandate to represent the species, leading to tense negotiations between major powers who fear being marginalized in the event of a human-alien dialogue. The immediate goal of these international summits will be to avoid escalation born of misunderstanding. Governments will prioritize domestic stability and transparency to prevent public panic, even as they struggle to assess a threat for which no doctrine exists. Ultimately, the arrival of a superior intelligence exposes the fragility of the international order. It strips away the illusion of sovereign control, revealing a geopolitical landscape that is dangerously fragmented. While political systems improvise, global markets will register the shock with diagnostic clarity. We look to the American financial system not out of parochialism, but because it remains the world's primary mechanism for pricing global risk. One index in particular, the NASDAQ, will serve as the barometer for this shock. As a high beta expression of technological optimism, its valuations rest on the implicit premise that humanity remains the apex innovator on Earth. This chart shows human innovation's expected trajectory. Markets absorb bad news, but not unquantifiable risk. This unknown variable introduces a strategic blind spot, scattering growth models chaotically. The shock propagates into U.S. Treasuries and the dollar, breaking assumptions of future returns. These market movements are not a prediction of alien hostility. They are a real-time metric of humanity's inability to model an unreadable future. registered through the world's most sensitive financial instruments. Scientific inquiry will undergo its most profound transformation since the birth of physics. The mere presence of the visitors invalidates several long-standing theoretical boundaries, proving that problems like interstellar travel, once considered nearly insurmountable, are solved challenges. Research resources will violently divide into two streams. One stream will attempt to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology, while the other prepares for a future where humanity is no longer the sole technological actor. This seismic shift turns science from a slow march of human discovery into a desperate, global existential race. Researchers will face unprecedented pressure to produce breakthroughs while grappling with the reality that our mastery of the universe is far from complete. The long-term trajectory of our civilization will be defined by an absolute asymmetry of power. In the absence of clear signals, we are forced to model our future between two extreme poles: conquest and coexistence. The first pole is strategic subordination. In this scenario, humanity becomes a secondary actor in its own environment. We might trade our sovereignty for security or access to knowledge, eventually surviving biologically but losing control of our own developmental trajectory. The second pole is stable coexistence. If we retain our agency, the presence of the visitors could spark a multi-civilizational renaissance. International cooperation would be driven by necessity, forcing our political systems and cultural identities to mature on a species-wide level. Most plausible futures lie in the murky spectrum between these extremes. Whether we fragment or adapt depends on the resilience of human institutions and our capacity to act with foresight in a universe where the familiar coordinates of power have been altered. The exercise of imagining alien contact provides a mirror, exposing the fragility of our own systems. It forces us to decide exactly what kind of civilization we must now become, at the very moment the familiar coordinates of identity and progress are irrevocably altered.